All right, welcome in to another edition of your Cricket Wireless Fantasy Football Update. It's the Fantasy Faceoff. Clasgens, James Adams. Today we're talking quarterbacks, and James, we're re-ranking our top 10 quarterbacks here at the mid-season. Just like we did at the beginning of the season, we're going to put them in tiers. Let's look at tier 1. Let's look at Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. These are my top 4. I know you agree with the same tier, perhaps in a different order. I'm going with Rodgers as my number 1, though. I think even without Greg Jennings, he's still proven that he can move the football. It's been rough at times. They've struggled at times. But the schedule ahead is friendly. If I were redrafting today, I'd still go with Rodgers. He looked pretty good Sunday night with those 6 touchdowns versus the Texans. Matt Ryan's my number 2 because that offense is so dangerous. I know you like Ryan as your number 1. How do you see these guys ranking 1 through 4?
Well, I have the same tier, Dan, and I think that's the most important thing when you rank guys. We talked about it preseason, is tiering guys, putting guys next to the players they belong with. I have Ryan number 1. He's got a great schedule going forward. He's got 2 of the best receivers in football who have been able to play every game. He's got probably the best tight end in football right now, certainly not the one we expected to be the best starting the year, but you take all 3 of those weapons, a good schedule, the fact that Matt Ryan's played so well so far this year. He's my number 1 quarterback in a re-rank. But I do have Brees, Rodgers, and Brady as the next 3, and they're all right there. And again, you're right, Dan. I wouldn't look at Rodgers as the number 1 overall pick, or Matt Ryan for that matter. But these are certainly the top guys, and they've separated themselves a little bit from that next tier. The next tier, certainly guys, though, that if you have on your roster going forward, you still got to feel great about. Eli Manning showing that he's more than just a playoff quarterback, as he's having another good regular season. RG3, when he's been able to be in there, he's been electric, one of the best quarterbacks in football. And Mike Vick, a guy who has had trouble so far this year, at times turning the ball over, but he's got a good schedule coming forward. And not only that, he's getting some of his weapons back, and we know that the talent's there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I almost think Eli's 1A there. He's proven with his weapons, he's going to get it done. And I like RG3. I'm just a little worried about his injuries. I mean, he is the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football right now, so it's certainly having its take on everything. The third tier, we've got Matthew Stafford, Cam Newton, Peyton Manning. We knew Manning would be sort of borderline top 10 going into the season. He hasn't disappointed. But, James, we're looking at Matthew Stafford and Cam Newton. Here are our number 2 preseason quarterbacks, respectively. You went with Stafford, I went with Newton. They've both been a little disappointing. I like them both to have better second halves, though, particularly Stafford. It can only get better. There's just too many weapons around him in that Lions passing game. We'll see how it unfolds, but it's going to be real interesting to just see who, if anybody, can crack the top 10. Some of our bubble guys, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco, Andrew Luck, Tony Romo, Big Ben, Ponder, Andy Dalton. None of these guys made it, but I think if James approves one thing, there's a lot of depth at the position.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dan. I mean, we've already gone past a top 12. Most leagues are 12 teams. So you're looking at some of these borderline third-tier guys as being second-team quarterbacks for some of these fantasy teams. If there's a guy, if you're hurting and struggling at your quarterback position, there's a guy in this third tier or even a little bit after that you could target in a trade, particularly a Stafford or a Newton, guys who have underperformed and probably left their owners wishing they didn't have them anymore. Now's the time to try and pounce on some of those guys. Yeah, we've got them re-ranked in the third tier, but we know that they've still got that top-tier potential talent. So, Matt Stafford, Cam Newton haven't been the greatest quarterbacks so far this year, but they could be the greatest quarterbacks for your fantasy team moving forward if you target one of these guys. And obviously, Dan, you talk about the re-rankings. We're not going to redraft here. We're talking about the re-rankings so that you can get a look at who you need to have moving forward, how guys will help you moving forward, and these are guys that you want to go after and try to get.
All right, be sure to stay tuned to all my mid-season rankings. You can get them at getsportsinfo.com. Catch James, myself, and Stephanie Theobald Sunday mornings. We're there every Sunday answering your fantasy questions. It's the Cricket Wireless Fantasy Football Game Day on Fox Sports 1360. For James Adams, Dan Clasgens. Till next time, good luck and enjoy the games.